information session up front, and also to explain a little bit why we have the beekeeper program. I will be doing that with Dr. Christian Maus, who's our scientific lead at the Beecare Center, and we'll dive into some of the examples of concrete things we do. And I'd like to start with this because for us sustainable agriculture is key, because we think that is the best approach to overcome global challenges in the food security and food quality area. And for us, sustainable agriculture means three things. It's really improving people's quality of life. It is about preserving the environment, but it's also about increasing farmers' profitability. Crop protection solutions are important. Thanks to all the innovations we do in those areas, we boost crop yields, we minimize pre- and post-harvest losses, and we improve the efficient use of natural resources such as land, water, and energy. And innovation has really made crop protection safer and more effective than ever before, both for the environment and for the consumer. Insect pollination is also important for agriculture. If we look at worldwide economic value of insect pollination, the latest estimates come out of the IBIS report that was published or is about to be published this year, where we're talking about 235 to 577 billion US dollars. So that it is important is clear. When we look at the kind of crops that are important in this regard, it's mainly fruits, vegetables, and tree nuts. Because important staple crops like wheat and rice and corn do not rely on insect pollination. And so if you look at the total agricultural tonnage, we're talking about 5 to 8% of that global crop production. So for sustainable agriculture, it's clear that we need both crop protection solutions and we need pollinator protection so that we can make use of both. And so Bayer is very interested in the topic of bees and pollinators because it's important for our customer, the grower, for the pollination. It's also important for a healthy, balanced diet, so for consumers as well. And also very directly linked to our business. If we look at our seeds business, for instance, we're actually the biggest customer in Canada for pollination services because we need that to produce our seeds. So we have pollination in general, which can be wind or self-pollination. We have the insects that pollinate, and of those insects, bees are very important. And we have three types of bees or categories that we distinguish. We have the honeybee, which is more a livestock animal. It's a flying cow, I would say. We have a bumblebee, which is kind of semi, because in the meantime, of course, bumblebees are also generated specifically for pollinator services. And then we have the solitary bees, which are really the wild bees. And I think we need to clearly distinguish between the three. Pollinators face numerous challenges in the modern world. It's important to realize that there are multiple factors, and these stressors are, for instance, weather conditions, it can be beekeeping practices, pests and diseases, nutrition and habitat, genetic factors, and agronomic practices. When we look at the honeybee, it's very clear that for the northern hemisphere, it's the varroa mite in particular and the associated viruses that are seen as the main driver of poor honeybee health. When we look at wild pollinators, it's mainly the habitat loss that is clearly driving here. Bee scientists generally agree on that point. There's multiple factors, and these are playing an important role. It's just that they don't really have consensus each time as to which factors are coming together. And there's relatively little research to look at those combined elements. And the other problem we have is that it differs per region, which factors play up, and it also differs per year, and so there is a lot of dynamics there. But if we look at the total honeybee colony numbers, it's very important really to mention that we're seeing an enormous increase. We're seeing a plus 65% in the range from 1961 to 2013, the last year we have FAO data. So we hear a lot out there that bees are in decline. I would like to counter that in the sense that there is definitely not a decline. We're definitely seeing a raise, mainly in Asia and Africa, and that has a very simple reason, because the number of beekeepers is increasing, especially in those regions. If we look at North America and Europe, the last 10 years have been pretty stable regarding the number of beekeepers and also the honeybee numbers. And again, it's mainly driven by socioeconomic factors. So how interesting is it to be in the honey production business, for instance? If the exports become very cheap into Europe, then people are out of business. Or if the subsidies that were given by the governments are withdrawn, honeybee business becomes less interesting. So what is then really driving the concern is overwintering, losses. So when we look at losses, that is what is, and why? Because that is an indication that the honeybees are weakened and have a less good honeybee health situation. When we look at the reasons why this is happening, that becomes more difficult, because monitoring shows that there's a lot of spatial variability and temporal variability. So one year in Spain figures are good, and then the next year they are not so good. So there's a lot of fluctuation and variability, and again that gives to show that there are multiple factors that are playing a role here, and that is what's actually keeping everybody very, very busy to find out, what are those drivers and how are these factors coming together. What we can say is that there is no correlation between bee losses and agricultural intensity. Yet this is our problem. There's multiple factors, everybody agrees, yet we are in the spotlight and we are blamed for bee mortalities. And that's why we set up the Bee Care program, because we said on the one hand, science is telling us, hey, it's multi-dimensional, we're seeing these multifactorial challenges, and these parasites and diseases are the most important cause for the honeybees and habitat for the pollinators in general. Yet, when we look from a society point of view, it's very one-dimensional. Neonics are in the spotlight, pesticides are being challenged, and the EU even decided to then restrict the neonics in 2013. And that made us realize we need to do two things. One, we need to more use all the knowledge and the expertise we have within the company to promote bee health and support bee health research and solutions. And on the other hand, we need to speak up. We need to talk much more. We need to communicate, we need to dialogue, and we need to show what we are contributing to pollinator health. And that's how the Bee Care program was established, to really create that central platform to do those things. Because we think we need to collectively take our responsibility regarding pollinator health, and we are one player in that future. And therefore we have our program where we act responsibly for pollinator health, and we always do that in partnerships, in collaborations. We work with bee experts in the different regions, in the different countries, on concrete projects that can advance and enhance pollinator health, or we work with partnerships with people that are good to work together to advance pollinator health. We have 3 focus areas. We work on foraging and nutrition and pollinator biodiversity under our Feed a Bee pillar. We work on the honeybee under our Healthy Hives pillar, where we look at pests and diseases and good hive management practices. Remember, we're talking about a livestock animal here, and good hive management practices are important, and Peter is going to show you some of that very soon. And then sustainable agriculture, all about the responsible use of our products It's about beekeepers and farmers coming closer together and dialoguing to ensure that they both get the benefits of being next to each other. And it's all about crop pollination, because if we can increase crop pollination and improve that, then we can improve yields, for instance.